Few more seconds here. That's being live streamed now. So whenever Mayor Pro Tem Schwartz would like to start, we can start.
Great. Good evening. I would like to call this meeting to order on Tuesday, October 12th, 2021 at 6 p.m. Call to order, please.
You've announced the start of the meeting, and we'll have the invocation done by Pastor Eddie Davis of the Church of the Nazarene, and then to be followed with the Pledge of Allegiance by Mayor Pro Tem Schwartz.
Okay. Welcome, Pastor Eddie Davis.
Hey, thank you, Mayor Pro Tem and esteemed council members. Thank you for taking care of our community and doing your best to help and enable all of our citizens to live a productive life, a good life, happy life. Please join me in prayer, if you will. Father God, thank you for your word. Thank you for its guidance. And I want to pray these words over our council members and all those leading our town. Lord, we pray for, we're thankful for them, first of all. We pray as an intercession prayer that you would help them, that you would engage in this business with them, give them wisdom to make good decisions. Lord, we pray for all those in authority along with them, that everyone in this town and in this county would be able to live peaceful and godly lives, Lord, with all dignity. Thank you that this is good and acceptable in your sight, God. Thank you that your desire is that all men and women would be saved and come to a knowledge of the truth. And we pray that to this end, that everyone would be able to understand what truth is and how to live peacefully with each other. Lord, in regard to current times, we ask that neighbors who don't see eye to eye would be able to speak cordially and to speak blessing over each other and talk out hard subjects while still loving each other and blessing each other and hoping for the best. Lord, I pray for these leaders that they would be able to do the same and be an example to all of our friends and neighbors in this town of how to approach difficult subjects with care, with love, and with wisdom. Now bless this meeting and all the decisions that need to be made. Bless all these leaders. In your name, Lord Jesus, I pray. Amen.
Move on to the Pledge of Allegiance. There's a flag behind Councilmember Ellis. Thank you. And please join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, roll call, please.
Councilmember Kong?
Here.
Councilmember Garcia?
Here.
Councilmember Ellis?
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Schwartz?
Here.
Mayor Mahoney is absent at this time.
Okay, public comment. Notice to the public. This time is set aside to receive public comment on matters not calendared on the agenda. When recognized by the mayor, please state your name and address for the record, and please limit your comments to 3 minutes. Under California law, the City Council is prohibited from generally discussing or taking action on items not included in the agenda. However, the City Council may briefly respond to comments or questions from members of the public. Therefore, the City Council will listen to all public comment, but will not generally discuss the matter or take action on it. We are going to move the proclamation until Mayor Mahoney joins us. So we'll move on to item number 7, Bishop Union High School Associate Student Body and Student Senate update, presented by Bishop Union High School Associate Student Body and Student Senate Representative Karen Rivas. Another Karen.
Madam Mayor Pro Tem, can I just, before we move on to that, can I just ask the city clerk whether we do have any public comment or any hands raised? at
Oh,
this time?
thanks. Sorry. I'm green to this.
Thank you. There are no public comments on our public comment email, and I do not see any raised hands. Jenny, can you confirm?
There are no raised hands.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Pucci. All right, now on to Karen Rivas.
Good evening, everyone. I am Karen Rivas, and I am the sophomore class president. So ASB has begun preparations for homecoming at the beginning of last month and are excited to be able to have an outdoor homecoming this year. The theme was voted upon by the student body, therefore Studio 54 was decided. With this theme, we plan to combine the party-esque elements, its iconic fashion, makeup, and inclusivity. That way, students are able to feel accommodated. Along with the homecoming dance, we have planned a spirit week, Ironman, powder puff, and a pep rally to bring as much school spirit as possible. We plan this rally to include activities like announcing homecoming court, staff participation games, and a field day, and other fun activities. The homecoming football game will be on October 22nd, and the homecoming dance is planned for the 23rd from 8 p.m. to 12 a.m. at the Tri-County Fairgrounds. Last week, we had our first official Spirit Week to support different and all cancers. We saw a lot of student participation. After homecoming, we plan to open a student store where students can buy snacks and school apparel / spirit, which will have more details to come. ASB is thrilled to have the ability to help lead the school in a more positive and spirit-filled environment with more events to come in the near future. Thank you. That's it for this report. And now I have the Student Senate one. Once again, thank you to the City Council for providing the Student Senate the time for our report during these meetings. I would like to open by reading the Senate's mission statement. Bishop High School Student Senate is a form of student government dedicated to receiving and projecting the student body voice to the community and the Bishop Unified School District through the following: promoting students' interests, needs, and welfare, acting as an intermediary between staff, administration, board, and students, serving our community and school with integrity and passion. We are committed to serving all of our students, regardless of individual differences, including but not limited to age, cultural background, disability, ethnicity, domestic situations, gender presentation, immigration status, race, religion, sex, sexual orientation, and social economic status. The Senate has taken time to listen to the student body's needs and have taken into consideration what we have heard. At the next open panel meeting, the Student Senate plans to present our future projects to admin to further their involvement in listening to what the students feel they need. Projects presented would be the paintings of the English building bathrooms, a potential rock garden, and possibly new ideas with the lockers. A project that the Senate is excited to announce is a new trophy case. It has been brought to our attention that the school does not have a dedicated trophy case for all of our sports. This trophy case will consist of new and previous victories, alumni jerseys, trophies, and other awards. We hope to collaborate with different people like alumni, teachers, civilians, and many more. We have continued to send our weekly check-ins and keep receiving a good amount of participation from the student body, with many open-ended responses helping us know what the students need. The Student Senate will continue to brainstorm ways to unite the student body and are excited to give more details to the City Council in the near future. Additionally, the Student Senate's next open panel meeting is on October 13th, being held in the Carl Lynn Boardroom at 6 p.m. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Karen. That's quite an ambitious agenda you guys have. That's wonderful.
Thank you.
All right. Does anyone have any questions for Karen?
Karen, what time was your next meeting again?
Our open panel meeting is at 6 p.m. tomorrow at the Carl Lynn Boardroom.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you.
Aaron, thank you. I look forward to the trophy case. I know the other one's kind of a little bit of everything, and I look forward to seeing that. I think it's a great project. Good job.
Thank you.
All right, Karen, thanks for joining us. Now
Thank
we'll
you.
move on to the County of Inyo update report prepared and presented by 2nd District Supervisor Jeff Griffiths.
Good evening, Madam Mayor Pro Tem and members of council. Nice to join you. You received my written report, but I would like to add some more to the whole thing. So first, I let you, as I usually do, let you know about the COVID situation, and we are currently seeing quite a bit of a surge, particularly amongst the youth population. So public health continues to monitor the situation and see if there is any additional measures that are needed in order to stem the spread of the pandemic. I think the thing to note is we are having mass vaccination clinics tied to booster shots regarding the Pfizer vaccine. And the one is happening this weekend. It was scheduled to be both Saturday and Sunday, but so far there's been some limited interest and people signing up. So at this point, it looks like it's only going to be Saturday, but we are fully staffed and capable of expanding it to Sunday if we need to, but that is for only people who received the Pfizer vaccine and only people who received their second dose 6 months ago, which corresponds with the mass vaccination clinics that we had back then. So all of that can be found at myturn.ca.gov, the way to sign up for that. And there's easy ways to get more information about that by calling the hotline or visiting the Inyo County website. But there will also be, as I said in my report, there will also be the weekend of November 20th, there will be a mass vaccination clinic there. However, all of the other vaccination options are still open, including Pfizer. So if you wanted to get your booster shot, but aren't available this weekend, like you could go through the myriad of other places that is possible to get that vaccine. Moving on from that, I talked about an ordinance that we passed the first reading of today, and it's regarding the Digital Infrastructure and Video Competition Act of 2006. Which is boring and old, but it basically is what used to regulate cable. And as you all know, people get their information from mainly from the internet now, as opposed to cable, and there are limited ways in order to regulate the internet. And we continue to see a lot of poor service, shall we say, in Inyo County in general and in the Bishop area. And so this is an effort that Inyo County is undertaking to look at old cable regulation rules to try to exert just a tiny little bit of authority and pressure on our internet providers. And it basically makes the reporting system, it's kind of complicated. I'm sure Dean Pucci either knows a lot about it or he's going to learn a lot about it here soon. But anyways, without boring you with all of the details, it only applies to the unincorporated area of Bishop. So it'd be really nice to have the city of Bishop pass a similar ordinance. And perhaps we could piggyback on the same reporting system that Inyo County is going to be developing to try to get a paper trail of people who are experiencing poor customer service from either their cable provider or their internet provider. And I'm happy to follow up with Dean or have County Council follow up with Dean in the future as that is needed. And then like the big ticket item of the day is redistricting. And so we had our first redistricting. We're talking about Inyo County supervisorial boundaries. It's sort of sunk home to everybody that there's going to be major changes to supervisorial boundaries in Inyo County. As I alluded to in my memo, When the census data, the state adjusted census data came in, there's quite an unequal population distribution throughout the supervisorial districts. A lot more people are now living in North County, and a lot fewer people living in South County, and that will necessitate some fairly major changes in supervisorial boundaries. We have an extremely short turnaround to figure all of this out because the data came in late from the Census Bureau, and we have primary elections coming up in the spring of next year, and you back up those dates, and basically, I don't know the exact date, but basically mid-December or a little bit earlier is when we need to have all of this stuff figured out. And to give you an example of the discrepancy amongst the districts, so District 4, which is Independence and Big Pine, has 3,188 residents, and District 3, which is West Bishop, has 4,546 residents. And the ideal district, if everything were exactly equal, would have 3,792 residents. And the way that it's set up is the goal is to get them within 3% of each other, which means there's a plus or minus of 143 people. We are basically allowed to go to up to 10% differential, but you have to explain why you're doing that, and it has to get approved by the state. So the goal is to get to the 3% number, which means what's probably going to happen is District 2, which is what I represent, which is what all of you represent. That is the city of Bishop. And encompasses a pretty large geographical area. It looks like that will shrink to just the city of Bishop, city limits of the city of Bishop, and then some dramatic changes elsewhere. It is possible that the city of Bishop could get split in two between different districts, although it would be highly unusual. Because the city, an incorporated city is pretty much the definition of a community of interest, which is the primary thing that you're trying to preserve during redistricting. The redistricting commission for Inyo County is the Board of Supervisors, and we had our first hearing today. We will have our second and third hearings next Tuesday at 11 a.m. and then an evening one at 6 o'clock. And then there will be a few more weeks after that with more hearings to gather public input. And in addition to those hearings, we intend to hold a technical assistance meeting in the evening to help people figure out how to navigate this process. And I've never done this before, so we'll see if I can pull this off, but I intend to share my screen and sort of walk you through. So the IT department in Inyo County, Mike Hay, I'll just give a shout out to that guy. He did an amazing job. He created this amazing GIS tool, which will enable you to draw your own districts and enable the public, you, the city council, individual city council members, any member of public can go on this thing and draw their own districts. And this is not the total technical, we're going to have another meeting where you get the full rundown and the public can learn how to use this tool. In addition, if the city council requests it, I can have a presentation by the whole redistricting team, how to figure it out. I'm sure Mayor Mahovey could probably write his own algorithm on how to do all of this. But so I would like to share my screen just to give you guys an introduction on how to go through this. So let's see if this works. Okay, so y'all can see that? Okay, so that's the landing page of when you go to the Inyo County website, and then you go under government, and then under the Board of Supervisors, you go all the way down, and there's redistricting. And from there, there's all of the information you need regarding redistricting. And I did this earlier. Let's see if we can figure it out. So if you go over here under redistricting tools, if you click here to build your own district. Then a map comes up of Inyo County. And so within this map, these green lines that you see are, they are census blocks. And so when you are building a district, you cannot break up a census block. That's the smallest amount of territory you can cover. And so some of them are huge. You know, you go down to Death Valley and there are these gigantic ones that don't have any actual human beings that live in it. But then you go to Bishop and you focus in. And you can see there are, the census blocks are actually quite small when you get into the populated areas. And again, if you go to, if we give you a special presentation, or if you go to the future technical workshop that we have not provided yet, that we just decided we're going to provide, so should be presented soon, you can get all of the different information. But through this tool, you can click on a particular population block and it'll tell you how many people live there, and it'll tell you the ethnic breakdown between the white population versus the population of people who are not white or Hispanic. You can see within the city of Bishop, things are fairly evenly distributed. And then if you click on this thing right here, there are ways to start to create a district. And it's so by point, by rectangle, by polygon, by circle, by line, by lasso. And so let's just, for fun, let's do rectangle. And so you can create a rectangle right around the city of Bishop, which that's probably what District 2 is going to look like, exactly like that. And then you can click on the little 3 dots, and there's a whole bunch of things you can do in there, but you can click on statistics, and it will tell you that in that block there are 3,888 people, of which our ideal is 3,792. And so I can tell you that that is a population size that will meet the equal representation under the law metric. So if I can figure out how to unshare now. Oh, new share. Share. Anyone now? Oh.
I took care of it for you.
Someone did it for me, which is fantastic because I had no idea how to do it. So that is the basic idea, and so people can get in there and fool around with what districts look like right now, which is exciting. But I think this is kind of an alarm bell to ring to everybody that what county supervisorial districts look like in Inyo County are going to be dramatically different at the end of this year, which will affect who is eligible to run and who the electorate is going to be for the election that comes in 2022 and following for the next 10 years. So I think it's really important for all of the citizenry to be involved in this, but certainly for the city council to have some say in it. Like I say, it's probably preordained what's going to happen in District 2. For City of Bishop, it's going to be the incorporated limits of the City of Bishop, which almost matches the average population, 20% of the population of Inyo County. But still, it's very important for everybody's voice to be heard. Thank you for allowing me to spend a little bit of extra time this report to explain that, but I'm happy to answer any questions on that or any of the other things in my report or anything else pertaining to the county.
Jeff, I'll just jump in. Can you talk a little bit about the revolving loan fund?
Sure.
And what you mean by revolving and how that's going to look?
Yeah, so the idea is that, so Inyo County has been setting some general fund money aside, and there's also some impending grant funding that is going to work for that. And the idea is that, and again, this doesn't apply as much as it currently stands for the City of Bishop, but for other parts of the county, it's more important. But if you look at housing that is dilapidated and not currently in rentable condition, that this is a revolving loan fund that would provide funding to rehabilitate that, get it into the housing market. And the idea is, knowing that we have limited amount of land available for new housing construction, to take care of any housing stock that we have and just get it into the housing market, get it into the rental market. Where it particularly applies to the City of Bishop. And I think there may be some properties in Bishop that qualify for that, I'm not sure. But we're setting it up in a very nimble way that there are certain pots. So we seeded it with general fund money. But to get into making a major impact, it's grant funding that we'll be looking for. And there are some pots of funding coming down the line that, for instance, if you wanted to build an AADU, an accessory dwelling unit, or a granny unit, mother-in-law unit, whatever you want to call it, a second unit on your property, that you could get a loan through this fund. And if you put it onto the rental market, not Airbnb, but the actual rental market, and then you could qualify for these super low interest loans for some of the rehabilitation funding. It's if you keep it in the rental market for a certain number of years, then the loan gets forgiven. So the idea is to create additional housing with the land footprint that we have right now, as it stands. And so we entered an MOU with Mammoth Lakes Housing to develop the program. And I think they're doing a really good job of writing it as nimbly as possible to be able to take advantage of whatever funding source comes available. But I do believe in the future that even in the City of Bishop, we're going to be able to use these funds to just create more available rental units.
That was my question about the repaying and what the guidelines were going to be for that.
So just to be clear, we don't know.
Okay.
We're developing them right now, but I think that there will be multiple guidelines on that, depending upon what funding source we get. If we're looking at just general fund money that Inyo County is putting into it, I think we're going to be looking at unoccupied dwellings that are being rehabilitated to make them occupiable, and that they are occupied for a certain period of time, and it's a low interest loan. But that may be different in the future.
My other question is about the mass vac clinics. If you've never had any shots, you can also come.
Yes, thank you for clarifying that. It is Pfizer. So as soon as you do that, you're getting into the Pfizer train, and can't change trains midway through. But that is open to first and second doses as well. Anybody. And I specifically asked a question about the booster dose. And so the booster dose is intended for, and I'm not even going to pretend to remember all of the details, but it's for people over a certain age, or people who work or are exposed to people who work in certain vulnerable or high exposure communities. I think the take home.
And who had their second shot or 6 months or longer.
Yeah.
ago.
So you had to have had your second shot 6 months earlier, which is hence the timing of this, with 6 months past the first
Clinic.
vaccination clinic. But that is a self-certification if you fit into one of those categories. So if you feel that you are in a high-risk occupation, or you live in the household of someone in a high-risk occupation, or you have a health condition that puts you at higher risk, or live in a household with someone who is at a higher risk, there's a self-certification that you show up and then they'll give you the shot. You do need to bring your evidence, as Mayor Mahovy said, of vaccination at least 6 months ago from your second shot. And that can be digital or paper.
And I'm just going to keep bothering you, Jeff. And then my last question is, do you think that the online registration is kind of hindering people in some fashion? You think there's people out there who want to get a vaccination and don't really understand the whole process? But they can still go to Vons and stuff without having to sign up in advance, or is there a way to do that?
Yes. So for the mass vaccination clinic, and this in particular, there is a reason behind having to have the online setup, in that we're talking about Pfizer, which has the storage requirements, and you can only open up, like, once you open up a vial, you have to use it up. And we're still at the point, even though there's plenty of vaccination available for everybody, we're still not trying to waste it. So we would like people to go through that process. There is the Inyo County hotline for people who don't have the internet connection or are just confused by the whole thing. They can call that number and make it happen. And then you're also absolutely correct that there is Vons and Dwayne's and Toyabe and like the multitude of other places that you can get that vaccine if you want to. And I think part of the relatively slow response we're getting regarding this mass vaccination clinic is that there are many other options available for people.
Yeah, thanks for clarifying all of that. And also thanks, Jeff, for showing the redistricting tool. I did poke around the site yesterday, and I was a little confused because all the tools that I found were on a statewide level. And so it was good to see it called out there on the side.
I was thinking you could have created your own algorithm for it, but
I will neither confirm nor deny that. And are there any other questions for Jeff? Any other comments? No. And thanks, Jeff, and thanks, Karen, for taking charge while I was still caught at work. we'll move on then. I see that we have a few attendees who are anxiously awaiting and feeling a little jumped over by the fact that we skipped over the proclamation. And you can totally blame me for that because we were going to have all of, because I wanted to be a part of this proclamation, because definitely we want to be declaring October 15, 2021 as Community Pink Day in Bishop, requested by the Eastern Sierra Cancer Alliance board member, Michelle Garcia. Could we have her come on at this time? Jenny?
Yes, I just added her and I'm adding a few other people as well.
And so, I mean, I think I speak for everybody on this council, maybe not in the most colorful terms, but cancer sucks. And we definitely are extremely supportive of everything that you guys do to help our community members who are undergoing that sort of treatment. And it's definitely something that's very much appreciated. I think you guys are all on at this time.
I think I have everyone.
Yeah. Do you want to, Michelle, you want to say some words about the organization and all of the wonderful things that you guys do?
I can. Good evening, Mayor Mahoney and council members. My name is Michelle Garcia, and I am the Eastern Sierra Cancer Alliance Board Secretary. I want to thank you all for declaring October 15th as Community Pink Day, which is National Mammography Day. I do want to extend additional gratitude to our community partners, the Northern Inyo Healthcare District, Southern Inyo Healthcare District, and the Antoyabe Indian Healthcare Project for their support in this. This year has been a critical one for our healthcare partners, as statistics have shown that the pandemic has deferred patients from completing the routine cancer screenings, and Inyo and Mono County are not immune to this trend. Nationally, we have also seen some disparities in screening opportunities among rural communities, and within those communities among our Hispanic and Native American people. This effort not only hopes to bring awareness for breast cancer screening, but to also help people get back on track for routine screenings. Because as we know, in most cancer occurrences, early detection saves lives. With the permission of Caltrans, we were able to line the main streets of the 395 corridor with dark pink ribbons in hope to remind everyone, to serve as a reminder for everyone to schedule your routine cancer screenings. Northern Inyo Healthcare District is hosting that Moonlight Mammograms, and they have shared that the first 2 evenings are completely booked and now are scheduling for a 3rd evening. The Eastern Sierra Cancer Alliance, who has been established for 21 years, thanks to Patricia Ramirez, our founder, is hosting our 21st annual 5K walk and fun run this Saturday at 9 a.m. at the Bishop City Park. So we hope to see you all there. This is our biggest fundraising event of the year, and we do take much pride in saying that 95 cents to every dollar that is donated goes straight back to our community cancer patients in Inyo and Mono County. I want to thank you all, to the Bishop City Council, to the Inyo and Mono County Board of Supervisors for declaring October 15th as Community Pink Day, and we hope to see you all on this Saturday, 9 a.m. at the Bishop City Park. And I will open it up to any other members who wish to speak on Community Pink Day or our activities through the month of October.
I see a few other of your board members. I don't know if you guys want to say anything, but if you do, feel free to unmute yourself.
I just wanted to thank all our business and organizational sponsors who've helped make this fundraiser a great success, especially our partner, Northern Inyo Healthcare District, and also the Inyo County, who granted us a resiliency grant this year. So thank you to all of those supporters, as well as all the registrations that are pouring in online and in person. Thank you.
Oh, definitely. Thank you guys. If there's anything else, or any comments from the board members, or shall we just jump into our proclamation. Karen, you want to kick us off?
Bishop City Council proclamation declaring October 15th, 2021, Community Pink Day in the city of Bishop. Whereas Eastern Sierra Cancer Alliance is a grassroots organization founded in 2001, initially with the mission to support and provide resources to residents diagnosed with breast cancer. And
whereas the nonprofit organization has expanded in both size and scope over the past 21 years to serve residents of Inyo and Mono counties diagnosed with all forms of cancer. And whereas for more than 2 decades, ECA board members have coordinated their efforts with countless compassionate volunteers and community organizations in service to those with cancer diagnoses, friends, families, members, and neighbors. And whereas this service includes educating the community about different forms of cancer in an effort to increase community awareness of current practices and positive outcomes in treating cancers today, and the resources ECA and other organizations offer. And most importantly, providing financial and moral support for clients and families as they cope with their cancer diagnosis and cost of treatment. And
whereas ESCA continues to work diligently to maintain a respectful relationship with its clients and the organizations and individuals with which it partners, and whereas gaining the trust and commitment of various Inyo and Mono organizations, businesses, and healthcare agencies shall allow ESCA to continue its mission, improve programs, and serve more than 300 clients since 2001, many of whom have needed repeated assistance due to travel out of the area for oncology appointments and cancer treatments. And whereas October has been a special month for ESCA and its partners since it is Breast Cancer Awareness Month, and the organization was originally founded to bring awareness to the disease and support those diagnosed with it. And
whereas breast cancer did not become part of the national and public conversation until the 1970s, and even then change was slow for women to receive the support they needed and for necessary medical research taking place in order to treat breast cancer with improved outcomes. And whereas today, the American Cancer Society, ACS, urges women to speak with their doctors about their risk for breast cancer. And the ACS has updated breast cancer screening mammogram recommendations based on age and family history. And whereas the color pink is now universally recognized color of breast cancer awareness. And
whereas ESCA continues to recognize the importance of both breast cancer awareness and mammography as a screening tool, and hopes to inspire and invite communities of Inyo and Mono counties to join in its mission, supporting and cheering for friends, neighbors, and family members with cancer in a fun, positive way by participating in Community Pink Day. Now, therefore, I, Stephen Mahovey, Mayor of the City of Bishop, along with the entire City Council, do hereby join ESCA in its mission by unanimously proclaiming October 15, 2021 as Community Pink Day in observance of Breast Cancer Awareness and National Mammography Day. In witness whereof, I have hereunto set my hand and caused the seal of the City of Bishop to be affixed this 12th day of October 2021. And we will definitely thank you for all your services, and we will have we'll get you a printed proclamation. Thank you so much. Okay, now next on our agenda is the Northern Inyo Hospital Quarterly Update, prepared and presented by Northern Inyo Hospital Interim Chief Executive Officer Kelly Davis. I don't know, I've seen a lot in the news.
Good evening, Mayor and esteemed council members. It's a pleasure to provide a quarterly update to you. You should have in your packet a brief overview of some of what's going on at the district. There's an awful lot going on. Trying to encompass that into a quarterly interim report or quarterly report is a little bit challenging, but tried to cover some of the key points. Some additional items that I would want to really emphasize is Northern Inyo is really not a stranger to some of the staffing shortages that we're seeing throughout the nation in healthcare in particular. We continue to struggle to recruit skilled candidates for positions that are open. We are broadening our recruiting processes to be able to be competitive with some of the other organizations throughout the nation. It is challenging. You may or may not be hearing some of the sign-on bonuses that healthcare organizations are resorting to try to attract not only RNs, but respiratory staff and quite a few other clinical team members. Those get very high, upwards of 40,000 in some areas that they're actually providing as sign-on bonuses for RNs in particular. So we try to be as competitive as possible. Obviously, as a small critical access hospital, we can only be, we have to be fiscally responsible. So we are looking outside the box, looking to recruiting companies that we normally really haven't looked at, and just trying to get out there and recruit staff. On the flip side of that, we continue to make every effort that we can to retain the amazing team members that we do have at the district, trying to work ways to help with schedules. We're currently in labor negotiations for wages. This includes our RN unit and our tech unit. So we're hoping to come to a quick and speedy resolution of that. We're also heavily focused on strategic supply chain management, watching supplies. I'm sure you've also seen in the news that we anticipate in the coming year supplies becoming even more difficult to get. If you can get them, you're paying exorbitant amounts to get those supplies. So we have a really good purchasing team that is staying abreast of those supply offers, making sure that we're, staffed, have our inventory as we should. So those are a couple of areas that we're really focusing on in addition to what's in the report. I did provide medical staff information as well, so that you're aware of some of the folks who have recently joined our medical staff, and some that we expect to be coming in the near future, as well as Breast Cancer Awareness Month, which thank you very much for the proclamation. That's Eastern Sierra Cancer Alliance is truly amazing. We're so fortunate to have them in our community. So any chances that we get as a district to partner with them is really an amazing opportunity. We are providing Moonlight mammograms this month, trying to make sure that we reach as many candidates as we can for mammograms. Typically people who would normally have gotten mammograms, many have postponed those efforts through COVID. You've seen a higher increase in breast cancer because people have postponed. So we're really trying to provide a lot of viable options for them, including evening mammograms, and just really a lot of advertising and encouragement, and making ourselves as available as possible as an organization. This too is our 75th anniversary as a district for groundbreaking. Some 75 years ago, people in this community recognized the need for a hospital. We are one of the first district hospitals in California. And that's an amazing thing to be part of this organization some 75 years later, and to see the growth that we have here in this small community and the amazing support that we have from our community. So we'll be trying to do some celebrations, very socially responsible, of course. So we try to strategically plan those celebrations for our staff and providers and for the community as well. So just trying to keep morale going. It's pretty challenging in the world itself, let alone in healthcare. And so hoping to provide a little respite. Otherwise, I would ask if you have any questions or for future quarterly updates, are there any specifics that you would like to see that I've been remiss of, or that you would feel that would be beneficial to make sure that you're informed as city council members and our public?
Kelly, I think this is a great report. And of course, it when you put information, it always spurs other questions. And so I'm just curious. I see that we do have a large fraction of full-time and part-time and per diem employees here. And I'm just curious how that's how the percentage of, say, locums has changed over time. If we've actually managed to attract those really specialized people to be here permanently.
I think in the previous years, we've kind of fluctuated. There were times about 4 or 5 years ago where we had a lot more travelers. We really made strategic efforts to obtain and recruit folks who would move to our community and become permanent parts of our organization. As we've seen some of the staffing shortages over the last almost 2 years, we've had no other options but to reach out to travelers. We've been fortunate in some ways, but that's getting harder and harder. Our goal is always to have more permanent and fewer contractors. I don't think you can ever fully move away from that, but I think there have been times when we've had fewer. We do try to be very cognizant of it. It's just depends upon the area. Right now, I think our travelers tend to be more RNs potentially, and maybe some other clinical team support staff members.
Yeah, because I mean, I'm just thinking anecdotally. I mean, I'm looking at this list of new medical staff, and I think I recognize a lot of them. So, whereas in the past, I wasn't really sure who worked at the hospital.
That's a good thing. We find that it's a very special group of providers who want to join the district and move to the community. We tend to have a lot of outdoor enthusiasts and folks who really want to work-life balance. And so we recruit a lot towards that. And I think we still attract a lot of people who, are really into rock climbing and snowboarding, skiing, mountain biking, those kind of things. And I think that's great. That's what we want. So I think we're recruiting and marketing well. It's just finding available resources out there. And our CNO was just mentioning today that she had seen, I don't know if it was on YouTube or I think she even said it was TikTok or something. And it was some RNs who were really advocating for traveling and the amazing opportunities you get right now because you can travel and you get $10,000 put into your bank account on a weekly basis. And it was pretty interesting to hear, so hopefully we can continue to recruit and get people here to our community.
Well, it seems you guys are doing a pretty good job. So.
Yeah. A lot of effort.
Yeah. Any other comments, questions from the council? No. Well, thanks again, Kelly. And when do we drop interim?
Well, we're working on it right now, and there's a board meeting on the 20th at 5:30, and we're just working on some contract negotiations and looking forward to what the future brings.
Thanks, Kelly. Have a
Thank
good night.
you. It's a pleasure. Have a good evening.
Okay, moving on to our department reports. We'll start today with Fire Chief Joe Dell. Joe, there you are.
Good evening. How do you hear me, Mayor?
Coffee clear.
Coughing clear. Yeah, I don't have COVID. How's council tonight? I've been busy. So real quick, last week we had Fire Prevention Week. We had our open house, which hopefully some of you got to go to. We did have to cancel our school functions that we usually do because of some staffing issues. Looking at some alternatives. Hopefully we can get into the school soon to get back in there. Our interviews for the fire prevention officer are in the next 2 days, next 3 days. It's pretty exciting. We ended up covering EMS for the high school rodeo over the weekend. And then the water tender is back from the KMP complex. And a reminder that we're still in fire season, even though we got a little bit of rain. There's a significant fire down at Independence today. So let's see if you have any questions. I'm going to let Destin do all the talking tonight.
No, I just want to commend you for bringing in some weather and batting down the smoke, because I know you were entirely responsible for that. But I mean, did you have to make it so cold?
Asking for a lot.
I know. Thanks, Joe. Any comments, questions from the council? Okay, then we'll move on to Police Chief Rich Standridge. Hey, Rich.
Hi, Council. How is everyone tonight?
Doing well.
So I will be quick. As Joe said, we are going to dump everything on Destin tonight. So, but anyway, with that being said, tomorrow is sergeant testing. So you might see 3 nervous individuals pacing around the police department or City Hall at some point. So that's going to be going on tomorrow. We've been really busy with a lot of stuff in house. Lieutenant Ellsworth and I have been working on policies and different things and getting a lot of paperwork tidied up. He just got back this afternoon. He went down south to check on our academy cadet as well and talk to a new recruit who's looking at applying with the city of Bishop. So we're hopefully moving forward in the right direction to get a new hire in here also. I want to commend Officer Zimmel. He had an outstanding case. He worked, I'm sure you saw the arrest that was made in the last couple of weeks with the individual soliciting over Instagram. He put a heck of a lot of work into that case, and it was work above and beyond that of a standard patrol officer. And I just wanted to commend him publicly and let everyone know how good of a job he did. I got to meet with Matthias over at Wild Iris, and it was a really good meeting. There's going to be some follow-on training with our department and their staff. And it looks like I may be moving towards a board of directors position with them over the next couple of months. So I think that's a good relationship to really keep moving forward for both us and for the city of Bishop and for the victims at our service. We did some radio antenna work. Black Point was down here last week doing some work on our repeater, some upgrades, some things that we had spent money on. I'm sure you folks saw the dual sport group that was here and made a hefty donation to our Shop with a Cop program that Officer Scobie is doing an outstanding job, both he and Officer Sita for our department, getting that moving forward for the holidays, especially in light of some of the logistical issues we have to overcome. And can't leave the meeting without finishing the recognition of our crossing guards and how good of a job they're doing out there, keeping the kids safe, going back and forth to school. And as the weather gets colder, they're still there every morning. So they're doing a great job. And both Lieutenant Ellsworth and I and Reserve Officer Sita will be participating in the healing walk with the victims of domestic violence, starting at the Paiute Cultural Center. We're going to attend the dinner, and then we're going to do the walk with them on Thursday night. So that kind of caps off our busy week. Does council have any questions for me?
Oh, great work all around. I was just checking my calendar, making sure, yep, it's on Thursday.
Are you going to be there?
I believe so.
Okay, well, we will see you there.
Any other comments, questions? Nope. Then I guess we'll move on to what everybody's been calling the star of the show, Destin, Public Works Director. What's going on? What's so special about your report today?
Well, first off, good evening, Mayor Mulvey and council. So these guys are throwing me under the bus. I just told them that I needed to update council on the OVGA and the Sustainable Groundwater Act. And they said, oh no, we'll be fast. But as you could tell, neither one of them were very fast. But anyways, I just wanted to give you a brief overview of the groundwater sustainability plan that is out for public comment right now. And council Member Kong will be voting in December on this plan to adopt it. So just to be quick, it's 261 pages. I'm gonna try to make this into a couple minutes long. So the groundwater sustainability plan, a quick overview. The plan establishes standards and criteria for sustainable groundwater management in the valley, or the basin, I should say. The basin, the Owens Valley Groundwater Basin, is broken into 3 regions: the Tri-Valleys, Fish Slough, the Owens Valley, which is the majority of the valley, with the exception of the Owens Dry Lake. At the bottom will be its own region. Again, the OVG operates as a governing public agency, which is also has authority to regulate and create laws and enforce them as well. So that's important to note, because anything that's done in this plan, we have the OVGA as a joint powers authority has the ability to fine, cite, which none of that is in the plans, but it's important to note that it's actually has a lot of power given to it. And so number one, I want to say, be obvious, the obvious comes out is that the OVGA has no governing authority over LADWP and the groundwater basin that's encompassed by their property and their water rights. That's all an adjudicated basin, and we have really essentially no say over them. So they're about 90% of the groundwater use in this valley. So that's important to keep in mind. Let's see, so the basis of the plan are sustainability indicators. And we're looking for undesirable results, such as chronic lowering of the water tables. What else would be another good one? Which, and I guess the reason you would look at that is because the additional costs on water users in the valley. We're really, this act protects the de minimis water user, who is the individual wells, which are very many of them in West Bishop and out in the Tri-Valleys. So we're trying to protect the small user from being disrupted by overdraft of the water basin. Let's see, like I said, I'm trying to get 261 pages into a couple minutes. So there'll be trigger points that will be set that will enact what could be possible regulations set forth and then applied over the entire basin. So I want to use our Owens Valley region as the basis for since this is what most affects us. So we're going to look at the years of 2012 through 2016, the drought years, and that's going to be set as essentially the benchmark for low water levels in the valley. That's the lowest they've been in many decades. So that seemed like a reasonable point to say, okay, that level is it. That's as low as we want to go. All these trigger points will stop us before we get there, when we get within a foot or a tenth of a foot or a tenth of an inch even. There's also land subsidence, the sinking of the ground, which the Central Valley is experiencing right now. There's also the interconnected surface waters that are dependent upon the shallow groundwater to keep those going, such as Fish Slough is one of them. And then we'll also be looking at water quality degradation. The management actions proposed in this act will be well registration and reporting ordinance. That'll mostly become for new wells. There's over 4,000 wells in the basin, and probably over half of them are not, they have no information on this well. So hopefully we don't have to step up and have to ask all of them to register. Increase groundwater monitoring networks, and then develop a groundwater model for the Tri-Valleys. And I say that last because all indications point to the Tri-Valleys forming, they're pulling out of this basin and forming their own groundwater sustainability group. So it is, again, what I want to say is the groundwater has been very sustainable and stable in this valley for a long time. So this is not rules that it's going to implement, going to have serious implications on water users, such as the city of Bishop. There's also thought that there should be more to it, but right now there's no reason to go that direction as staff, that we see as staff to the OVGA. And I guess really, that's the meat and potatoes of this thing. It's a plan that we will adopt, but we'll also shelve as soon as this is, because we are a low priority basin. So we don't have to do this plan. We don't need to enforce the plan. But we also know that with 5 years of drought possibly coming, who knows, that we may become a medium priority basin. And so at this time, there was money by the state, over $800,000 to put this plan together. And if we didn't act then, and then we get moved into a moderate or a medium priority basin, say in a year from now, the members of the JPA would be on the hook for paying for this. So really that's kind of a 40,000 foot overview, quick one. It's hard to put 261 pages into a couple minutes. I apologize. But at this time, if you have any questions for me or even Councilmember Kong or suggestions. And I also want to add that anybody's watching on the chat, there are 2 public meetings, the week of the 4th of October, and then again on, let me look right here on the chat. I just put it up there again. So they're actually October 6th and October 13th. I have the link to the Zoom meeting on there. And there's also a link at the bottom for anybody in the public that can't make those meetings to review it and then make comment there as well.
And we have all of that. We'll have that information on the city website under Public Works or something.
That's what I plan on doing, is putting that on there. I'm gonna have Michelle put that up there tomorrow. And then, so the public comment period closes on November 8th. So important to know out there. And then the OVGA board will adopt, if they choose to, on December 9th. So it's coming up fast, thinking that we've been working on this for 4 years.
Okay. And is there maybe between you and Karen, is there any particular section that if the public say only had like 15 minutes to look at, that you would classify as the most important section to look at?
I think probably the most important section will be those sustainability indicators. That's what seems to be the most common, is people want to understand how we're basing these decisions going forward off of. And then it's also broken down into the 3 regions of the basin. So if you're mostly worried about the Owens Dry Lake, you can go right to the Owens Dry Lake and focus on just that, as well as the other regions.
There is also, Mayor, an abstract, an introduction that kind of goes through, breezes over the top a little bit of what the nitty gritty is. And I think what the community really needs to recognize is, for people who are not water savvy and understanding all this particulars, is that what this plan does is give us a red warning light, right? So it's like a check engine light for our water system, so that we're setting what those are, looking at historical data, and right before it comes on, we'll step in. And because we're a low priority by the state, the chances that that's actually going to happen are probably pretty low, but it's great to have that as a, just on ready to go, just in case we get closer than we think.
Well, remember, the main reason we went down this path is because at first the state did not designate us low priority. And so the state at times makes designations for our area that aren't entirely making sense, but okay.
Yeah, you're completely correct. It was based off the export of water from the valley that we have no control over. And the next board of directors at the state level could say, no, it doesn't matter. You're going back to a medium priority based on export of water.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and so if anyone has questions, they are welcome to contact me directly. I've been sitting in on the meeting since I've been a member, and can kind of give the best general, not water savvy explanation of what's going on. In addition, tomorrow night is the last meeting if you want the experts to explain it to you. The rest, you then have the rest of the next 2.5 weeks to make your comments. So, if you think about it and want to know more, please reach out.
Destin, anything else, or was that all you wanted to cover in Public Works update?
I guess the last thing I'll say is it would be next Tuesday is a Bow Wow board meeting. So our quarterly board meeting on the 19th of October at 8 a.m. And lastly, let's do what we can to conserve water. We are definitely in a drought, and I believe that the governor is getting close to making mandatory water reduction for for the entire state.
One question I have is, since we just had this cold snap, I do expect a bunch of the trees to start dropping leaves. When do you foresee the leaf picking happening?
So the leaf picking usually starts around Halloween.
Okay.
Very, very close to then. And I will say that if everybody could do their best to do their job to get their leaves cleaned up out of their yard, we are currently down to one sweeper. And with the part that's needed for the broken sweeper could be as far as 2 months out. So it's going to be tough on one old sweeper to keep up with it. So please, everybody do their job, keep their leaves in their yard and clean them up.
Well, thanks, Destin. We have lots of reading to do. Next up, we have Community Services Manager Dan McElroy.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Can you hear me okay?
We can.
Just a quick update from Community Services. As you guys know, we had heavy winds over the last couple days, including today. So over the next couple days, we'll be cleaning up the parks as well as parking lots around City Hall and all the nooks and crannies around that we can to get most of the leaves up. And with that, with the cold snap, Stephen, you stole my thunder, and I was going to say the annual leaf harvest has begun. So over the next couple of weeks, and we'll probably work on it all the way through January. There's a lot of leaf cleanup, especially in our parking lots and in the city parks. Just to fill you guys in, the pool is now closed. We've begun work on getting new pool covers for the pool, as well as new heat exchangers for the heaters, a new vacuum, and then of course, some electrical work that needs to be done at the pool slide. So lots of work to be done at the pool this winter. Kind of what's been going on at the park is on Thursday night, there will be a vigil Thursday afternoon at the front of the park. Of course, the Eastern Sierra Breast Cancer Alliance Walk will begin on Saturday morning. In our programming, we continue to offer adult soccer, after-school program, and gymnastics. And we have begun work and we're finalizing. We have dates and flyers out for the trunk or treat October 30th. And looking forward to doing some pickup Frisbee golf, hopefully on Saturdays and Sundays in the park with Waylon and another staff member to kind of kick it off and see how it goes and see how much participation we get for Frisbee golf. If you guys have any questions or comments for me, I'd love to answer them.
No, that sounds pretty comprehensive. Were any of the cottonwoods deadly during the wind event? Are they holding up okay? The ones in the park?
Yeah, everything that we've done, we spent $6,000 last month doing a lot of pruning and cleaning in the park. Everything held up well. There were no large branches or anything substantial. So it was just a lot of picking up small sticks and lots of debris this morning. So it was very welcome to see that the work that we're doing is working. So
good to hear.
Thank you.
Any other comments, questions? If not, we'll move on to Associate Planner and Economic Development Coordinator, Elaine Kabala.
Good evening, Mayor Mahove and Council. Only have 3 updates for you this evening.
First, I wanted to remind you that the administrative draft of the downtown specific plan and mixed use overlay is available for city staff, for the council and the planning commission to provide comment on through the end of this week. Following that, the consultants will consolidate our comments into a public draft, which will be available for public review during the month of November. We're planning to have one more round of public workshops, and then I'll look forward to bringing that to your council and the planning commission for consideration in December, possibly bleeding into the first meeting in January. We'll see how the timing goes on that. Second, I wanted to let you know that in consultation with Mr. Phillips, we've elected to open the cannabis retailer application period November 1st and closing January 1st. We've talked with a couple of other municipalities, and this seems like an appropriate window, and moreover, it provides people time over the holidays since it's unlikely that we'd be able to begin processing those applications prior to Christmas and New Year's. So again, we plan to open that application period on November 1st and close it on January 1st. And then finally, wanted to let the council know that we met with the grant consultants that we brought under contract on Friday. They'll be meeting with each of the department heads individually to talk about their funding needs and different grant opportunities for meeting those. But they came prepared to the meeting with several grant opportunities that are appropriate for the city of Bishop. And we have a few that we plan to look at and pursue already. And we'll be coming back to the council with those different projects and updates as they're necessary. Concludes my overview this evening. I'm happy to take any questions. Thank you.
That's great. I'm really glad to hear that we're moving forward with the grant writer and the grant consultant, and really excited to see the specific plan coming to fruition. It's definitely been a lot of hard work in the making. So. Any other comments, questions from the council? If not, we will move on to our city administrator, Ron Phillips.
Thank you, Mayor Mulvey, members of the council. I attended an excellent risk management set of meetings put on by the California Joint Powers Insurance Authority, and appreciated that opportunity of learning. And beyond that, I think everyone's covered material that we need to cover, and you can get on with your meeting.
Cool. Thanks, Ron. Any comments, questions from council?
I have a quick question, Ron. Has there been any mumblings about reopening the COVID response group because of our numbers going up, or have they not talked about it at all?
The Emergency Operations Committee is meeting once a week. And there really has not been anything come out of that except the reports on Friday of the numbers. So we are meeting, but not every day like we were doing before.
Thanks.
Yeah, I think one of the biggest differences from before was that in the past our numbers were high, but so was the impact on our hospital. And I think that's been one of the biggest differences with vaccination of at-risk groups and even younger population not getting as sick and needing hospitalization. So, but still, we should all go get vaccinated. All right, then we will move on to our consent calendar. Notice to the public, all matters under the consent calendar are considered routine by the city and will be acted on by one motion. And before we make a motion or get public comment on that. We have removed item 11A4 from the consent calendar, and that will come to us at a later date. Do we have any comments or questions from the council? Do we have any public comment?
There are no public comments on our public comment email. Jenny, do we have any raised hands?
There are no raised hands.
Thank you.
Okay, then I'll entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion to accept the consent calendar as presented.
No, second.
Okay, we have a motion, a second. Call for the vote.
Councilmember Khan,
Yes.
Councilmember Garcia,
Yes.
Councilmember Ellis,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Schwartz,
Yes.
and Mayor Mahovey.
Yes.
Thank you. Motion passes 5-0.
Okay, moving on to new business. Our first item is a resolution, a proposed resolution making the legally required findings to authorize the conduct of remote telephonic meetings during the state of emergency. Is this going to Robin or to Dean?
I'll be happy to start, and that way Dean can answer all the tough questions.
All right.
On Thursday, September 16, 2021, the governor signed Assembly Bill 361, also known as AB 361. Because the bill contained urgency findings, the law is now in effect. AB 361 allows local agencies to continue to conduct remote, quote, Zoom meetings during a declared state of emergency, provided local agencies comply with specified requirements. Absent this legislation, local agencies would have had to return to traditional meetings beginning on October 1, 2021. Starting on October 1 and running through the end of 2023, to participate in remote meetings, public agencies must comply with the requirements of new subsection E of Government Code Section 54953. There's an initial remote meeting. For the first remote public meeting, a legislative body on or after October 1, 2021, such meeting is only allowed if it is during a state of emergency proclaimed by the governor, and at least one of the following is true. 1, state or local officials have imposed or recommended measures to promote social distancing, or 2, the legislative body is holding a meeting for the purpose of determining whether, as a result of the emergency, meeting in person would present imminent risks to the health or safety of attendees. That is, the legislative body will be determining whether there is such a risk. Or 3, by majority vote, the legislative body determined that, as a result of the emergency, meeting in person would present imminent risks to the health or safety of attendees. That is, the legislative body already determined there is such a risk. You'll see on attachment 1 of the staff report, it contains the proposed resolution making the necessary findings to hold the first remote meeting after October 1, 2021. This resolution also makes the necessary findings for all subordinate legislative bodies of the city, such as the Planning Commission, Parks and Rec Commissions, so these bodies can also continue to meet remotely. Subsequent remote meetings. Anytime after the first remote meeting of the legislative body, it can meet remotely if both of the following apply. 1, state, local emergency, social distancing, either A, state of emergency remains active, or B, state or local officials have imposed or recommended measures to promote social distancing. And 2, 30 days. Within the last 30 days, which a vote may occur at that meeting, the legislative body has made the following findings by majority vote. A, the legislative body has reconsidered the circumstances of the state of emergency. B, any of the following circumstances exist. 1, the state of emergency continues to directly impact the ability of the members to meet safely in person. 2, state or local officials continue to impose or recommend measures to promote social distancing. Subsection E3 states that after the legislative body makes this determination, The legislative body must make this determination every 30 days thereafter. That makes sense for legislative bodies which meet every 30 days. They can meet multiple times in that 30-day period without having to make the findings at every meeting. A plain reading of the statute means that every time a legislative body meets after the first such meeting, it must have a meeting within 30 days, even if the only item on the agenda is to determine the need to meet remotely. This is the safest route, given that this complies with the letter of the law. But some agencies are likely to find this impractical. Did the legislature truly intend to require legislative bodies to call a meeting for the sole purpose of preserving the right to future remote meetings? Courts are reluctant to attribute to the legislature an intent to create a, quote, an illogical or confusing scheme, end quote. If an agency is willing to accept the legal risk for these situations, it can take the position that the statute was meant to still allow remote meetings if more than 30 days had passed, provided that at the very first meeting since the last time the findings were made, the legislative body makes the requisite findings. That is, the legislature did not mean what it said, and that the 30-day language was meant to help rather than hinder the operation of local government. As a practical matter, if the city intends to conduct meetings remotely, it should add to every agenda a consent calendar item to reaffirm the findings described above, which are required to allow the remote meetings. Otherwise, the city runs the risk of forgetting to include the reaffirmation on any particular meeting agenda. Attachment 2 to your staff report contains the proposed resolution making the necessary findings to hold ongoing remote meetings after the initial remote meeting held on or after October 1. This resolution also makes the necessary findings for all subordinate legislative bodies of the city, such as the Planning Commission. So these bodies can also continue to meet remotely on an ongoing basis. Budget, there are no budget impacts. City Attorney Pucci has reviewed this item and finds that the recommended action complies with the law. And unless you have other further questions, staff recommends 1, adopt the resolution initially authorizing remote city council meetings after October 1, 2021, attached as attachment 1 by title only, please. And 2, direct staff to place on all future consent calendars the resolution authorizing ongoing remote city council meetings as displayed in attachment 2.
Okay,
That
thanks,
concludes
Robin.
the part. You're welcome.
So my understanding is that this is now a requirement in order to even give us the option to have remote meetings. Is that?
That's correct. And Dean's nodding his head.
And so, and so we basically just have to add these resolutions to our consent calendar. And if we don't do this now, then we don't have an option, and all of the meetings and all of the commission meetings also have to go back to being in person. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. So, I mean, I think for the sake of giving us flexibility, I mean, this doesn't preclude us having in-person meetings, right?
Correct.
But it does give us the option to have it. So
It does not. Making the findings that there are substantial threats might fly in the face of decision to go back. But if you decide you want to go back in person, we can eliminate that declaration and we can reimpose it at any time. Dr. Richardson issued an order for this very purpose, or that letter recommending social distancing and conducting meetings for this very reason, so that we and the board of supervisors could rely on that order as one of the elements under the new law.
Any feedback, comments from the council?
Did this with SCOG. I think every legislative body is doing it. It's pretty standard.
Okay.
Quick question, Dean. Every time we meet and we have this on here, we don't have to do a new ordinance. We just have to approve this, say we're still in working off this ordinance.
Yeah, so we just wanted to have you do this officially as the first resolution. After that, all subsequent resolutions will simply go on consent.
Okay. Do we have any public comment on this matter?
I do not see any public comments on our public comment email. And Jenny, do I have any raised hands?
There are no raised hands.
Thank you.
Looks like Destin raised his hand.
I promoted him.
Destin, are you commenting on this matter as a member of the public?
No, Mayor, I was just preparing to get on for the next item.
All right. Okay, so we have no public comment and no raised hands from members of the public. I'll entertain a motion.
Do it. I'll make a motion to adopt the resolution initially authorizing remote city council meetings after October 1st, 2021, attached as attachment 1 by title only. And then I will direct staff to place all future consent calendars, resolution authorizing ongoing remote city council meetings attached as attachment 2.
Second that.
Okay, Robin, we have a motion, a second. Call for the vote.
Councilmember Kong.
Yes.
Don't you need to read it, Robin?
Oh, yes, thank you. I had flipped my page. Here we go. A resolution of the City Council of the City of Bishop, State of California, making the legally required findings to authorize the conduct of remote telephonic meetings during the state of emergency. Councilmember Kong.
Yes.
Councilmember Garcia.
Yes.
Councilmember Ellis.
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Schwartz.
Yes.
And Mayor Mulvey.
Yes.
Thank you. Motion passes 5-0.
Okay, and moving on to our last item of new business. It's a discussion on land purchases. So the council is to discuss land purchases in the city of Bishop. And this is, I guess, Dustin, are you taking the lead on this?
Sounds like it. I think we drew straws, but I wasn't there and I got the short one. So,
all right.
So knowing that we have this great need for land for housing and many other things actually within the city and bound by LADWP, myself, Ron Phillips and Elaine met with Adam Perez and Elsa Jimenez of LADWP Real Estate. Adam's the aqueduct manager, but also the head of real estate. So we talked to them about the possibility of acquiring land, whether it be through surplusing land, selling land to the city, and we surplus it. And they basically told us that what we need to do is submit a letter referring to exactly which parcels of land that we would like, that the city would like to see surplus or sold to the city of Bishop. They would like that letter formally prepared. And so tonight, I think the main topic of this discussion will be Elaine has identified 2 pieces of property or 2 parcels, which would be north and south of the Silver Peaks project, which would be the corner of McIver and Spruce Street. Both of those are very similar to that Silver Peaks project. Seem very easy. Water, sewer, all the utilities are right there. So we, for one tonight, we'd like, if that's what the council would like us to prepare that letter, we would take your direction and do that. They did let us know that they are very understaffed in the Bishop Real Estate office and that They would like, they said the process could take anywhere from 2 to 8 years. Yes, exactly. And, you know, and I don't want to be totally negative about it because they, you know, we look at the sewer plant pasture and when they dedicate staff to something, they will get it done. But at this point, you know, 2 to 8 years just doesn't seem very reasonable to solve our housing crisis. And I believe that's what Kelly from the hospital is basically inferring, is that you can't, no matter how much you incentivize people to come to work for you, unless there's somewhere to live, you're not going to be able to get them up here. And so today, you know, really this is just opening discussion with council as to what you all think are viable properties, how you would like us to go about going after those properties. We also brought up the North Sierra Highway properties that we just built a water line to accommodate the sale of those properties. And they just said with survey staff and real estate staff that those aren't even in the picture right now. So, you know, whether with direction, you know, does staff or council need to go and make an appearance at a council meeting and try to bring up what the Mayor Garcetti, you know, basically made promises to, let's get going and get land available up here. You know, we also are waiting for a legal opinion. Does LADWP need to abide by the Surplus Lands Act? And that's a big one right there. That could save years of work where they could just surplus it right to a developer for housing. So it was a good meeting, and we got to hear, you know, obviously it's just like everybody, staffing is the issue, but you know, it's how do we want to take this forward and maybe more aggressively in that, and maybe as a region, do we need to look at it as the entire Inyo, Mono, Bishop as a region? You know, maybe the SCOG gets involved with us on this as well. But it just kind of opened it up to discussion at this point.
Thanks, Dustin. One question I have, if they're talking about like any sort of land divestment taking between 2 to 8 years, why are we talking of having a letter with only 2 properties? Why don't we just highlight every single property that they own in the city limits that could be developed into housing, or properties that have houses on them that are vacant 90% of the time?
Agreed. Agreed. And that was just our starting talking point with them. And that's why we hope bringing this up for discussion could give us staff better direction as to how we want to proceed with more. You know, we just saw those as low hanging fruit that could immediately, we thought would be very immediate releases that they could make happen, that we know we could get a developer to build affordable housing or workforce housing on or something. So any direction you council would like to give us, we'd be more than happy to take it forward.
I mean, so my take on it is, I think at this point, we should just have an inventory of the properties, and we just ask them to consider all of these, and we can have tiers of what we think are priorities that we think would be prioritized on that end, on our end. I guess one other question that I have on our side, I would imagine we would want to do some legwork, and I mean I'm saying this stuff, but I'm sure all of this has been done, and I'm just not privy to it. So please, anybody on staff, don't take offense as I just throw this stuff out there, but like maybe do some legwork on actually having developers that are ready to go, or with estimates of what it would cost to develop those particular properties, and having some legwork done on identifying funding sources, which we just hired the grant firm, so they must have a good handle on those sorts of funding sources, so that we can get a sense of how much funding we would have to like have on hand to be able to enact those sorts of things. So I think that's something that we can do ahead of time, but then just to basically have our ducks in orders and have it like then we can take a bunch of more aggressive stances and go to the LA City Council and be like, hey, we're ready. This is impacting us, or have staff reach out to the higher up people at the mayor's office. I mean, another spitbally idea I would have here is like maybe, and at that point we can, if we have this plan set out for how to develop to be able to address our housing needs, then we reach out to our state legislators and ask them to advocate on our behalf at the state level, that to basically have the city of Los Angeles have to abide by the Surplus Land Act. I don't know, what are other people's thoughts, ideas?
And maybe before.
And with you, I'm sorry, Destin.
No, I'm sorry. I was just going to say that I think partly the reason that the two parcels were chosen, one, that they're easily developable, and two is if DWP acted today, we need to have somehow the funding to be able to purchase those quickly. The grants, grants come along when you've identified properties and maybe even got a promissory note that they'll be sold. And Elaine's more privileged to know on the grant side of it, but also know that we do have an inventory of all the vacant land owned by DWP within the city limits. And there's a lot of it. Sorry, Councilman Garcia.
It's okay, Destin. I was just going to say that I agree with Stephen on how to approach this issue.
Well, I guess I'd like to figure out a way we can do this in multiple ways at the same time, so that we are submitting this letter, we are talking to Garcetti's office, we are working with Garcetti's people behind the scenes, we are marching to the doors of Caltrans and DWP and knocking on the door. We are talking to our legislatures, that we're all kind of targeted and trying to do as much of this as possible. And by us, I mean staff and council and Mr. Phillips, and really just get a move on and make it clear to them that 2 to 8 years is just not acceptable for what we need. That we need it to be faster for our population.
I'm completely in sync with all of you, and I don't need to say what you guys have said, but I fully agree. And I think maybe the fact that you've identified these parcels, maybe we, write the letter and then we have the follow-up plan of action. But I definitely agree. And then there's another idea that I have that doesn't involve DWP, that once everyone gives their comments, I'd like to suggest to the council on opening up some other land purchases.
Yeah, I think Karen probably said this best, is it's kind of a fine line, but we don't have 2 to 8 years. It's right here, right now in front of us. The problem is real. It's starting to impact our staffing within our city, not just the hospital. We don't have 2 to 8 years. I think we have to, it's a fine line for me to walk right here, but, identify properties and actually be ready to pull the trigger on this gun if it's ready. Have the funding lined up, not hope that we can get a grant someday for some property somewhere, maybe that if the property becomes available, we push it from the top down and we start going after this hard. and have the funding available, ready to go and transfer it out. I know Steve and I met with an individual who has money, who cannot find property. I think we have to take it upon ourselves to find that property, and it's in our hands, and then we can get rid of it and flip it over. So I say, we're kind of done. I think we're past the point of talking and begging and pleading. We have to start getting pretty aggressive on this, and on to Karen's idea.
And so is it the kind of thing, when you were talking to Adam and Elsa, did they give a sense of who it is that we should be calling every week and like annoying?
They actually, I would say, no, they didn't, and I will say that that's more me talking, that I think that after that meeting, and not being disrespectful to either of those two,
No.
but it's, it's beyond, it's out of their control, really. It's down south is where the problem is. And, and he said, Adam said it, he said, if you're going to do anything, he says, complain about the staffing levels at Bishop, that nothing can get done. And I said, understood that, but this is becoming a region-wide problem that needs to be addressed, and it's going to take a long time. That's the hardest part about this whole thing. I'm not sure how you speed this process up, and that's why I'm very anxiously waiting what Council Member Schwartz has to say.
Well, I was thinking when I saw this agenda item, and it came to me when I was having a meeting with Elaine, we do need some new city facilities, such as a fire department, and we need a new police department, and we could even use potentially a new city hall. What if we passed a bond measure to purchase the old Kmart property and just moved everything over there, and then used the current city property to become housing?
As
From
in
an
tear
urban-
sorry, Stephen, as in tear the building down and build housing there, or?
I mean, there's, some of it. I mean, I don't think the fire department is anything to like the, it's not like historical value, but there's lots of conversations to be had. But we, this is something that we could bring to the people. We have a perfect old Kmart that could be a city center. It could, be a great municipal. We could even maybe see if the state of California would like to put their courthouse there. And then we could have the lot that the city owns with many, many conversations on what that looks like. But definitely there's room for quite a bit of housing in the area that we own.
There is. I mean, I think there would be a lot of pushback, in particular, as you know, from people who revere that parking lot.
Well, we could, keep parking and not have housing.
Stephen, you've seen it here, and times have changed here. There should be no way that in Bishop of 10 years ago, we would be having a conversation about opening up dispensaries. So times have changed. And the city of Bishop is incredibly limited in assets that we have. We are sitting on a big chunk of property that isn't being used to the best that it could possibly be used to in the interest of our citizens. I would have to kind of question that at the moment, when the number one need we have, and number one need that we should be focused on as the five of us, is housing our citizens in our community. I think Karen has a great idea. I think put it before the vote, put it before the voters. If they approve it, there's cities out there that have done this, and we're working in underutilized facilities as far as our police department's too small. grand jury report after grand jury after grand jury report points it out, and we seem to kind of, okay, yeah, we're gonna get on it, but we haven't. Our fire department we're talking about moving on to the next level of service there. We're undersized there. We're sitting in a 120-year-old building that how it makes codes, we have no idea. At what point is it in the best interest of the public to do eminent domain, however we do it, to purchase Kmart property, get the bond, make an investment in the next 50, 80, 75, whatever years? I think I'd truly like to entertain this idea.
Well, I think we all recognize that we have deteriorating infrastructure, and that we are going to need to address that in the coming years. But where I get a little hesitant in taking this conversation in that direction is that we have had conversations with the old Kmart owner, and he is willing to sell the property for development of housing. So why would we want to conflate those two issues in this regard? I mean, I think what I'm saying is, I think a bond measure for police and fire and city hall is separate from a discussion on land acquisitions for housing.
And I'm going to go even a little bit farther than that. As a member of the community, I don't know how I'd feel about a bond measure to build us a new police station when there are people who are living in their cars. And there are companies that can't bring people here. I mean, it would have to be in my opinion, it would have to be the housing first, and our comfort and accessibility and all the rest of that second. And sadly, don't see those two things being able to happen at the same time. So that is a problem for me.
But Karen, someone has to make a move. And we have the ability, we own property in the city of Bishop. Someone has to make the move. And to Stephen's point, if they want to build housing there, then on the old Kmart, then great. But it doesn't seem to be going anywhere because of some other lease issues or something that's in the way there. If there's something else, I don't know about it. But at what point do we jump in and make the move and update our facilities? Yes, we have other housing issues, but here's our chance to, and the voters will tell us yes or no. If they say, you guys are kidding yourselves, you think we're going to pass this bond, we'll kind of have a pretty good idea we can't afford to do, that we're on the wrong track. But I think we have to someone has to make a move, a strategic move to try to crack open the egg. The property that we're sitting on police department, fire department, city hall, how many housing units can we put in there realistically in 2-3 stories high that we start talking about moving up? 80 units, 100 units, plus some retail, and maybe make a combination like we talked about on North Sierra Highway project years ago, that it's one giant center of commercial, retail, everything. We could change the dynamic of Bishop rather quickly. Just my thought, but I'll go either way. I just say, I think it's time to entertain an idea and make a strategic move and an investment in the Bishop's future.
But is your strategic move proposal then to take a bond measure to purchase a property that we don't own to build infrastructure on, and then try to identify an investor to build housing on a property we do own? I mean, it seems to me like it conflates a few issues. You're muted, Jim.
Jim, you're muted.
You're muted, Jim.
I'm always muted. Okay, I see your point, but can we take a bond measure out to take our existing property and put new city stuff on and leave Kmart alone and hope that it turns out to be something great?
I mean, I would say we could take a bond measure and then actually invoke eminent domain against the Kmart property to build housing units.
Because how much is the property we're sitting on worth in reference to moving us? I mean, you could almost do a land exchange on it.
So I guess I feel like we're getting into the weeds just a little bit. You know, my thought is, how do we get land as far as being strategic and effective and urgent about it? And the other piece of that is, where is the money coming from? And, you know, as far as I'm concerned, if we wanted to sell our parking lots and put housing there right now, I don't know that that's a bad idea. And if we want to have that discussion, I'd be more than happy to have that discussion. But if we're going to talk about other entities that own property that we would like to be able to do things on, we need to figure out where the money's coming from. And, or if there is a way to eminent domain, I don't know enough about that to know.
The money should be a pretty short issue, and I'm sure we have people with way bigger brains than me that know it. But cities that are doing it, however you find the money through FDA or whatever, at whatever loan rate, all you're doing is flipping it. Buy it, make 6 months worth of payment. If we can't sell a piece of property in Bishop, I think something's probably wrong. You know, we have people, yeah, it's not like we're trying to, you know, sell it on an island in the middle of nowhere with nothing there. So it's just a matter of get it, flip it, and for exactly what we paid for. If we pay 1.2 million and it costs us another 20,000 to do something with it, we sell it for 1.22 million. I don't know, but we just have to make that commitment. Crazy thoughts.
And listen, I'm not wed to any idea. It's an agenda item, so I use this opportunity to have a conversation with all of us on, you know, the wacky idea that I had. I don't feel like it's conflating the issues. It's more of, let's, you know, sky's the limit. Let's talk about what ideas that we could have that don't involve DWP, because we know that that is a process. So what are some action items that we personally have control over that could add housing to our stock? And whether it, you know, be housing on that parking lot, or I was just thinking that a city center would make sense at the old Kmart, and housing would make sense where we currently are located, just for infill. You know, there's residential houses all around the current city lot. So it's more just pie in the sky, but I really think that it would be nice to have some of these conversations. You know, I definitely agree that we have to be cognizant of going after DWP land, but I also feel like we've never really had the conversation of like, what can we do with what we've got? And that can really be a way to bring some more housing to Bishop. So how it plays out, you know, I think it's a big, long conversation, but we can't only rely on asking DWP to release land to get in some action.
I agree in part, because I do think one of I mean, it's no secret that we have a housing shortage, but when you have one entity who owns 98% of the developable land, and we focus all our energy on the 2%, it's not going to make a dent. And so that's why I was hoping to have this discussion be on, like, what are strategic things that we can do to actually make a dent in the problem, right? Because I do know, Karen, you have, and you can comment, Karen Kong, you can comment on this, but I mean, you have spoken to the owner of the property, the old Kmart, and he is willing to let go of it and develop it, right? For housing. And we're missing that part of having the developer to do it, right?
Stephen, I think it's worth listening and talking about all of our ideas.
Sure.
Karen Schwartz's idea. I like the fact that if we should be talking about the future. We know what our problem is today, housing. Okay, how are we going to address that? We also know that we need city infrastructure. We need new police department, new fire department, city hall. So how are we going to do any of that? Doing the bond, whether it's in the next 12, 18, 24 months, it's not a bad idea for city infrastructure. But we cannot say, okay, let's focus all of our attention on that. No, and we're not trying to do that. We know that housing is the number one issue. We should continue talking to DWP, as Destin explained. We should be presenting that letter with the list of all of the properties they own that we would like to have released. And yes, we should be pursuing those options to get a developer and find a way to buy that old Kmart property. And I think each one of us does one thing. We talk to one person or another. As an example, today I met with Robert Sharp from Eastern Sierra Community Bank. And he knows of developers that will be willing to and interested on that old Kmart property for housing development. So today I did set up a meeting with Elaine, and I'm planning to talk to her tomorrow about it. I called Karen Kong also today to get some more information about it. So either each one of us do something individually, or we set up a committee, or we task someone to do one thing, somebody else to do another thing, because we all know the issues. We want to address them. Not one idea is better than the other. It's just that we all need to be on the same page. We all need to know that information so that we're not duplicating efforts. So how we're going to do that without violating the Brown Act? And I think Dean is probably already spinning his wheels. Okay, Jose, you cannot meet. I know. But we need to find a way of communicating and not duplicating efforts. And we all agree on the issues. We all agree in solving the issues. So let's just get it done, as Jean said. Let's stop talking and do more doing.
But I think that's what we want to do. We want to define the actions. So what are the actions that we're defining given the staff that we have? Because we can sit here and say, like, do things.
Yeah.
But if we're not specific about what the things are, then that's, I think, how we end up in this cycle.
It seems like that many times councils form subcommittees, essentially 2 members to, and not that I want to belabor this into many meetings and become big bureaucracy, but 2 council members, staff, and maybe we get a developer involved with us as well, and then come up with a game plan, at that point that we can all agree on and move forward from there. But it's hard at this point because it's the missing piece, the developer, the money, which parcels, how do we go about it? Without deciding all that, I don't think we know how to move forward. And then maybe a subcommittee and staff and a developer could help close that circle up for us.
I'm not disagreeing with that, Destin. I guess maybe the answer, at least surface level answer, is that some people work on specifics. Like Jim talks to Ron and talks to Dean and makes sure that and tries to figure out a way to buy I don't know, the old In Your Register building. That'd be a great location for a few duplexes or townhomes, right? That could be Jim's first efforts at getting the city to flip things in the way he's talking about. And Karen and Jose work on, I don't know, how we work on infrastructure, and Stephen and I figure out the DWP piece. I mean, and then I think that maybe it's not that we need to pick which avenue we go. We just are all kind of going on our own little ways to make it so that we can get stuff done. That being said, I really would like to hear from Dean a little bit about the eminent domain piece and what those rules are.
Yeah, so my recommendation is that perhaps maybe we re-agendize this discussion after, this is the first time I've been, asked about this. Certainly, I think it's a good idea for staff to have a coordinated front here with Elaine, with Ron, with Destin, in terms of what options there are for council, in terms of assessing whether there would be the requisite public purpose for eminent domain actions. I know that is kind of a gray area that I would want to just not shoot off at the hip on for council in terms of options. I do know that this is agendized as a general discussion on property acquisitions. That's why I'm kind of not interjecting here, because it is generally agendized as property acquisitions. But I do want to have a little more comprehensive of an answer for you. Keep in mind, though, with property acquisitions via eminent domain, even if you can get a public purpose designation or make the necessary findings, you are going to be paying market rates for those properties. So funding sources and whether the city has the requisite funding sources to purchase properties at prime real estate rates right now is not a legal issue. That's a finance director issue. But I do think that we need to, and if the idea is to create an ad hoc committee where all of these options are laid out, I mean, this is more strategic planning discussions right now than it is, each council member is having different ideas of where to grab properties and how to increase housing. I think that probably needs to be a more focused effort coordinated by city management in terms of an ad hoc response, and then bringing back to the council, here are the 5 areas that we can explore, and get council then direction, and then individual council members can communicate with Ron and say, these are my ideas, and there's no Brown Act violations there, and then let staff vet that in a focused way that brings back council's options and says, you cannot do this, you can do this, do you want to do this, and on what priority level?
And I think that that makes sense to me. And I didn't mean to put you on the spot about the eminent domain stuff. It's just always been a question in my head that it's kind of out there. And I need to make it clear to staff, from my perspective, this has got to be an effort for all of us. That I have a job, and Jose has a job, and Stephen, we all have jobs, right? But if we're really going to tackle this in some sort of big way, we all need to be involved, so that stuff actually gets done. And not implying that you guys can't get it done, but that it's such a big boulder to roll uphill that we all sort of need to be pushing it together.
I think we have one member of the public with their hand raised. Can we promote Anthony Otati? Hi, Anthony. Please limit your comments to 3 minutes.
Thank you. Hello, Mayor and Council. First
Hello.
off, I want to thank you all for your hard work on the housing issue. The progress you have made, particularly the housing element update and the handshake agreement with Mayor Garcetti, is very exciting. Councilmember Schwartz, I really like your idea of infill development, particularly on the old Kmart site. I think building as much housing, particularly public housing, close to our jobs-rich downtown is essential. I hope that we can develop some of DWP's land, but the city does not sprawl out too far and eat up valuable green space, and I think that the housing element is headed exactly in this direction. Eliminating parking minimums and redeveloping empty parking lots will also help us in this direction. If a bond is put on the ballot, I'd like to see the main focus be on housing, not necessarily on a new city hall / police. Housing is a very pressing issue. Anecdotally, rents have gone up 50% in my apartment complex in the last 18 months, and will probably only go up even more. More and more community members are getting priced out. Many people working service jobs are already sleeping in their vehicles. Again, I'd like to thank you all for your hard work on the issue. I'm very supportive of the direction the council is heading, and keep fighting the good fight.
Thanks, Anthony. And so, I mean, at this point, what do we do in this regard? Do we want to form an ad hoc committee? Do we want people should we have council members like pitch in writing to Ron what approaches we think we might take, and then he'll collate that and bring that back to us? Because I think, I mean, one of the obvious things that we want to do is get a sense of the properties of interest and the developer list. It seems there's, I mean, I'm sure Elaine has spoken to Robert Sharp as well, and the funding sources and what, like, get an estimate of how much money we're talking about in this regard in our ideal land to, or an ideal world to like be able to acquire land to do housing. But then what more? Elaine?
Good evening, council. I apologize. I wasn't on screen before. My internet was a little spotty this evening. I would offer to the council that the housing element does include properties of interest for housing development that DWP has agreed to as surplus. There may be properties in addition to those that we would be interested in that are not currently zoned for residential. They might be zoned for commercial, including some of the smaller properties in town which may not be suitable for residential development. If the council would like for us to come back with a strategy that includes those properties, that would be wonderful. But the housing element does currently contain an inventory of DWP properties that would be suitable for housing development. I'd also offer that in your council's direction, so much as you'd like to provide staff the direction to come back with additional strategies, it would appear that a thorough analysis of the Surplus Lands Act and how that impacts DWP divestitures, as well as what happens if the city of Bishop were to purchase those properties, it seems like it would be very valuable, as well as probably a summary of the conversations that we have had with the vacant Kmart building property owners to help inform those strategies moving forward as well. Thank you.
Elaine, one question. You mentioned that the housing element does identify properties for development. And then you also mentioned that I believe all of those that were identified were DWP properties, right? Or were they not?
No, there's,
Okay.
I think there's 7 DWP properties identified that total about 20 acres. The vacant Kmart site is also included in the housing element as an opportunity site, as well as being included in the downtown specific plan we're developing as an opportunity site.
I see. So I think what would be informative is if we had kind of I mean, I'm sure this is in there too. The main barrier to acquiring those properties, because it does seem like the ones that are in private hands, the ones that Karen Schwartz and Jim mentioned, the old Kmart building that's in private hands, that seems like the barrier is just funding. But if the majority of the properties that we have already identified, so we have already done a lot of the legwork that we're discussing, are DWP, then I think that does push the concentration of our efforts in that route. I mean, we've already done the work to identify which are the properties of interest. So I guess now it's just a matter of what are the steps to acquire those to be able to do to fulfill our housing needs in that regard.
Thank you, Mayor Mahovey. I agree. And we can, as Mr. Pucci suggested, re-agendize this issue with further direction in addition to that about exactly the best information the council needs to develop that strategy.
Yeah. Because I think, yeah, we need to approach this from many prongs, but I think with that list, I mean, we've all seen that list. We know that what we need to be doing is coming up with a strategy on how to basically force another entity's hand. Jim?
Stephen, just maybe to kind of wrap this up into a little bundle. Would it be possible, and it was going to be on my list for future agenda items, would it be possible to put this onto an agenda similar to I know Karen Schwartz has done it before. Put it on a strategic property or real estate or however you want to word it meeting. We meet for 3 hours as a council with staff and kind of just pinpoint the exact ideas we want to go, where we want to go, what's worth doing, what's not, so that we're not all, I mean, I love Karen's idea, we all each attack something, but is that the proper thing? Where are we at as far as staff? We have a part-time employee doing full-time employee work, it seems like, and we're asking her to now, let's make you double full-time employee. At what point do we have to maybe bring in additional staff or find some additional sources? But I think it would be nice to maybe have an agendize a 3-hour strategic planning session for us 5, plus all the city staff needed. And let's come up with the 5 things we want to attack that are actually doable. I know part of my talk my thing I want to put on the agenda, and Karen Schwartz and I have talked about it, we've seen it, is ESTA they had a company come in, give them, here's all the things wrong with ESTA, here's where you need to be. And there was a dashboard, basically red, orange, green. And there was some accountability in there off the 10 items they picked. Where are we at today? Where are we at this meeting? Where are we at? So we're not just running around in circles, tackling every little project, but there's actually some accountability, some benchmarks, and you can see where we're going. So if us as a council, if we can agendize it, figure out what our targets are to actually attack this housing market and then housing problem, give us manageable, what do we need? What tools do we need? And here's the goalpost. We're on the 0-yard line. Show us when we're at 10, 20, 30, give us an idea of where we're heading so that we know we're falling behind here. Let's get this, let's put some more resources and move forward. So that's where I'd like to see us go if possible and get all on the same page. I think Jose's right. We all need to be on one page. Maybe that's a way to do it. We all sit down at one time.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's clear that we should agendize this for another meeting where we actually have a lot of the information on a lot of these properties and what would be plans to go after them. But I do think one of the big impetuses of agendizing this right now is that we did have that meeting with the mayor of City of Los Angeles. He was open to conversations, and we wanted to strike while that iron was hot before he becomes ambassador to India.
And that's great. And I think that's kind of what our discussion is here. Mine is completely, the conversation I want to have is completely separate. That it is, yeah, that is right here, right now, Stephen. we need to probably work on that part, but I'm talking overall, what is our strategic goals? We talk about, budget. We have budget meetings every year to talk about our future budget, but we don't have a sit down and talk about what are our future housing needs, what tools are in our toolbox, what tools are missing from our toolbox. The identifying the properties component is part of it, but we're not even that built up, I think, in my opinion, that we don't even know what tools we have, what options are out there. And that's kind of where I'd like to see us have a 3-hour session where we look at what can we do, what do we need to do, what do we want to do. So, but yeah, your part, Stephen, the Garcetti part, yeah, there's targets right there in front of us. I think Destin is kind of, and Ron and Elaine have opened that door. Yeah, door's open, let's run through it, but let's get a better idea of the whole path.
But I mean, I think from our discussion, we just tabled it all until, I mean, what are actions that we're talking about doing with regards to that in particular? Ron?
I think the staff has heard some good ideas and discussion tonight. What I would like to do is for us to, first of all, as I mentioned to you earlier, Mayor Mahovey, draft a letter for you to consider sending to Mayor Garcetti, outlining what we would like for him to do on our behalf, or at least begin the work on it, and then that we develop an outline of how to approach the strategic plan of dealing with housing and with City Hall and those issues that have been brought up tonight, looking at things such as with Dean, eminent domain and that sort of thing, and share that with you, and then decide if you want to proceed to a longer work session on the subject.
Can I also add that I just want to caution council, and just briefly here, in terms of having individual conversations with developers or property owners, keep in mind that I think it's a good idea for the council to just kind of step back, give staff the direction on the areas they want to be briefed, and that way we can comprehensively give you some advice in terms of whether those should be public comments or in open sessions, whether those should be closed session discussions, because as you're talking about eminent domain, you're talking about initiating litigation. If you're talking about negotiating purchases of private property, you're talking about real property negotiations, and both of those discussions probably should not be had in open session before the council is on the same page about what they want to do, authorize, or where they want to go. So I think setting this out will allow us to assess and give council some advice in terms of, we want to pull you into closed session on some of these items so that we're not giving away critical strategies or negotiating tactics in these general discussions.
Okay. So what have we recapped in this?
My recap would be what Ron said, which is they think they have a general direction. They're going to bring it back to us sooner than later, I hope, so that we really can strike while the iron's hot. And we just had with that meeting with Garcetti, and Dean's going to tell us what we should be saying in public and what we should be saying in private. That's a terrible recap. I'm sorry.
Yeah, and I would make sure with whatever the letter that is that we're going to be writing the City of Los Angeles Mayor's Office, that we're going to be submitting to DWP, that they should be the same, and if possible, that we should get that out definitely sooner rather than later, within the next couple of weeks. And then on that front, we have a strategy meeting on what it is that we can do to kind of shepherd that along and be the squeaky wheel that needs the grease on their behalf. And then have also a general city strategy-wide discussion on other properties as well. Okay. Do we have?
We hear you.
All right. Do we, Robin, do we have any more public comment before we move off of this item?
There are no public comments in our public comment email. Jenny, do we have any raised hands?
There are no raised hands.
All right. Moving on to future agenda items. Jim.
Already did it.
Okay. Karen Kong.
I'm looking at my list. Give me 2 seconds.
Okay, Jose Garcia.
I would like to ask Ron and department heads to talk to us during the report about the activities they have in their calendar for the next 2 weeks after the council meeting. It's nice that we hear what they did in the last 2 weeks, but it's also good if we know what are the activities taking place in their own departments, so that not only we are informed, but that we may have an opportunity to help, to support. So it will be nice to be informed. And I know some of the department heads sometimes do that, mention, oh, next Thursday, we're gonna be doing something. But that's not a routine part of the report. And I would like to see that implemented. I'm not asking for the report to be double the time, but if they can split their time and talk to us about what they did and what they are going to do. That's it.
So like give a preview and yeah, anything upcoming that maybe we could help with. Oh, okay. Karen Kong, did you get a chance to look in your notes?
Yes. I think that what I'd like to hear is a little, I've been getting a lot of comments from people about the sort of flow chart rules for quarantining and not quarantining. And if you're vaccinated, you're on this list. And if you're unvaccinated, you're on that list. Steven's rolling his eyes at me. And in order for me to answer that thoroughly, I would love to see something from public health, even if it's just a report that says this is the rules of thumb that we go by as far as COVID is concerned.
The only reason I'm rolling my eyes a little bit is like, last I checked, the county had a public health department. Why didn't you ask that of Jeff? He was here earlier.
Because I was asking 7,000 questions.
So are you okay. So are you asking for that as a future agenda item?
Or ask it of them and have them submit it as a report? Is that possible? I know it's not an agenda item.
Okay. So we can have them just do a report and then add it to consent or something like that. Okay. Okay, Karen Schwartz, future agenda items.
I don't have any.
I don't either. I think we've covered enough. Okay, council and committee reports. Let's go back to you, Karen Schwartz.
Okay, ESTA was canceled. I'm sorry that I missed the event at the fire department. That I usually really enjoy that. So I'm sure some of you were able to attend. And then we had ESCOG. And just to give a quick overview, we renewed the contract with Elaine Kabala. There was a subcommittee formed for an RFP to look at some of the consultants for the fuels project up in Mammoth. And then we approved a resolution that is going to be part of a grant application for funding to explore a potential trail that goes through the entire Eastern Sierra. So that was pretty exciting. And that wraps up my report.
Cool. Karen Kong.
I've been camping since literally the morning after our last meeting, so I've got nothing to report.
All right. Jose.
I attended a photo shoot with the Chamber of Commerce for Eastern Sierra Bass Fishing. It's exciting to see new ownership taking over the place, and they have good plans for the fishing spot. I also attended the Ventura County Motorcycle Club dinner last Saturday, hosted by the Chamber of Commerce. I would say close to 100 or more than 100, between 100 and 150 people attended the dinner from Ventura County. Very nice group of people. As Chief Standridge said, they donated a nice check over $2,000 to the Shop with the Cow project. Very good group of people. And none of the other committees had a meeting over the last 2 weeks. So that's my report.
Okay, Jim.
Kind of echo Karen Schwartz on most of it. Did the SCOG, missed some other events. I apologize. Last thing, this Saturday up at near Brown's Campground, up past Crowley, there is a cleanup event sponsored by DWP, and I forgot the other part of it. But there's a cleanup event. We went to it last year, and you clean up all along the river there, the road, and just be part of the community. So it's this Saturday at 9. If anyone should happen to be up there, I know it conflicts with the thing we have here at the park, but there is an event happening up there, and the public is welcome. Should be a pretty fun event. That's it for me.
Yep. I also there was a pretty light schedule over the last couple of weeks, and I guess I'll be paying for that in the upcoming weeks because I will be on the Bishop Area Wastewater Authority and the LTC in the next week, and so I don't have much to report. So without further ado, I guess I will adjourn this meeting until Monday, October 25th, 2021. Have a wonderful week, everybody.